Time to say hello. I don't know why I said it that way. I felt a little Mr. Rogers-ish there. So, sorry for that, but hello, I am online. I'm just kind of checking my levels, making sure things are good. All right, cool, hi. So I see a hi there. Thank you for saying hello. Hello, that's great, thank you. It's good to see who's out there, and good to know that I'm not just sort of talking to my camera, although I'm happy to do that too. It's just nice that if people are watching live, so. Cool. Actually, I should turn down my volume so that I don't hear the notification sounds too much. Hola, nice. Hola to you as well. Oh, and Sally B, looks like you're in both places, so good. That works too. Great. Well, I'm glad you all are here because today what I want to talk about is the next node, Node 3, and I'm going to introduce it today. And you are likely, I hope you are interested to hear what this is about. So here we go. Just bear in mind a few things as usual when I'm streaming. You can talk to me via the chat channel, which shows up visibly on the stream right below me. You can also send me messages on the Twitch chat, although the Discord one is a little better because that's archived and it's also kind of integrated into the video like this. So when I upload this later, it'll be part of that. Hopefully you can hear me okay and see me okay. It seems to be going okay as far as the things that it reports to me, so hopefully that's the case. for you as well. But if not, if you have any questions, let me know. Or if you have any issues seeing it, let me know. Usually with Twitch, what we found is just refreshing or sometimes closing the tab and opening it again will get the stream going if it freezes. So, excuse me. So if that happens, just try that and see if that helps. And then, but hopefully it works fine. Okay, so a couple of things you can see on the screen here. I do have the first page of the next node, and it's here. And I like node 2. I've started building this as a module in Canvas, so it's actually a series of pages and then an assignment to turn in at the end. And there will be much more content coming, but I wanted to show you the structure and talk about how I'm presenting this structure. I think because I think some people, it's kind of confusing going into a whole different thing with node 2. And I want to make sure you see where you need to look to see things. And also I want to remind you or talk a little bit about the face-to-face classes and how that's going, and kind of see what we want to do with that. So before we get into this any further, let me just take a look at, or let me just say it this way. So if you look at most of these node pages, actually, what I'm doing for these pages is I've got a header with the basic stuff you need to know for these days of class. So this is Wednesdays, and it has a little note here about the format. So that's the Wednesday cohorts for section 1 and section 2 should meet in person. Everyone else should be online in Discord. And then for each of these, I'm going to fill in what to do before this class and kind of what we're going to try to do during that class, and then what to do after class. And then each page is going to be, I'm going to try to keep all of the content for each day on a single page. Those might get kind of long, but I think that'll make it easier to find things. So what this will include, like today, I'll just add any notes that I think are important based on what I talk about today. But for days like Wednesday and Friday, I will build out a plan for each version of that class day. So it's always the same goals for everybody, but if you're online synchronously or online asynchronously, then you might be accomplishing those goals in slightly different ways. So I'm going to try to put all that into individual pages. But right now, so far at least, you can see the structure. And I wanted to mention the structure because I would like to ask you all, this is a request, if you will make sure that you are in the cohort you think you are in, or make sure you know what cohort you're in. Some of you requested moving or switching to online only, and I feel like I'm not totally up on those. I feel like there are some that I have not yet moved, but I can't remember. I got a whole lot of requests, so I may have missed a couple. So if you don't mind, take a look and make sure you're in the right cohort. You can check that in Canvas by going to the people page. Yours will look different, but if you go to the people page, you should be able to see which, and you click on F2F cohorts, you should be able to see which cohort you're in. I can't pull it up here on the stream here without showing people's real names, but hopefully you know how to find that. If you're not sure, let me know, but also you can check in the, sorry, I'm seeing things. You can also check in the, in Discord. If you click on your name in Discord, you can see which role I've assigned you to, and so that's going to be either online or a Wednesday section 1, Wednesday section 2, Friday section 1, Friday section 2. And so make sure you're in the one you think you are. Make sure that it's the same as the one in Canvas and that it's the one that you requested or that you need. I say that because there's some people who I expected to see on Wednesday and Friday that I didn't, and I don't know if that's because you switched or you desire to switch to online only, or you just missed a day, or what. So double check those, please. At this point, there were so few people coming face to face this past week that we really could have combined those into one meeting day. So it was for both sections, only 8 or 9 people total across both days. So if, which is certainly within the capacity for the room. So it might just make sense for all 9 or 8 or 9, whatever, of you to meet at the same time, as opposed to half and half. So anyway, I'm continuing to evaluate these options, and I will probably send out a poll later this week asking you for your feedback on how things are going in terms of the distribution of formats and kind of where you are with that, and see if we need to consider rearranging some things, basically. All right, so let's see. Yes, so I got some questions here. Yeah, okay, great. So the questions have to do with Node 2, so maybe I'll start with that, and then I'll go from there. And KGP Gracie, I did see your email, so I just haven't gotten back to you yet, but this will hopefully answer your question, and if not, I'll write it too. And Carolyn, you might have the same question, so I will see if that's the case. Oh yes, okay, and I see, yes, that's fine to switch Jules. I know you asked me that once before, and I haven't switched it yet, but I will try to remember this time. Okay, good. So let me talk about Node 2 a bit, and then we'll get into Node 3, and then go from there. So Node 2, let's take a look at Node 2. And this is mainly to answer KGP Gracie's question and possibly Carolyn's, and maybe a few others because some of you, so about 10 of you still haven't turned it in, last I checked. So whereas Node 1 was a Colab notebook and it had all the content and all of the interactive stuff built into one place, and it was a lot. Node 2 is also a lot, but it's spread out over separate pages in a module in Canvas. And so you can look at it like this in kind of a table of contents view. And I like that Canvas lets me organize things this way, but I don't like that it makes it hard to see this structure. This table of contents view is kind of hard to see where you are within that sequence usually, except for like on any given page, like on this one, you have at the bottom like a previous and a next link, so you can move forward and backward within it, but you kind of have to trust that sequence. Whereas I would rather you know kind of top down, where am I in relation to what came before and what's coming next. In any case, if you look through here, everything that has like a little hand waving thing means that there's some kind of prompt, some kind of action for you to take. So it's something to do, or a discussion to participate in, for example, or something to complete and create. And then a couple more of those actually probably needed hand waving things. So I would say just go through each of those just to double check. And then Node 2, the thing that I'd like for you to turn in for Node 2 is simply a summary of all the things you did for each of those hand waving sections. Like for each of the things that asked you to do something, what did you do for each of those? I'm asking you for that because they're in several places. They might be a Canvas discussion, or a Discord discussion, or a face-to-face discussion, or it might be something else. So it doesn't have to be an essay, just a list or a paragraph or two describing what you did during all of the 2 weeks of Node 2. That would be great. It's kind of a reflection, so it's a chance for you to think back on what you did, but it's also it's kind of a report too, where you're going to be telling me what you did, in case I didn't see it already. The other thing that you should do within here, one of the things you should do within here, is a Colab notebook. And it's explained on this page, generating text with AI, and you should take a look here. So it's interesting. The nature of what I've created here is, there's code, but this isn't really instruction in coding or programming. The idea is that these things should just work as they exist with a little bit of modification from you. So the part that you're contributing to this and the part that you need to either do on your own or figure out on your own is creating a plain text file and then uploading that into this notebook and then running that plain text file through a couple of different things. The first thing is a Markov chain generator, and the second thing is a GPT-2 neural network that is going to be trained on your text sample to try to generate new text. So the actual code, the heavy lifting here is happening in code that I wrote, or that the module, this library, this is Max Wolf wrote this and I'm just using it. So it's not like doing well with this doesn't mean that you understand this code or that you're deciding what this code does. It's really just kind of getting through it. And then I think troubleshooting it is an important skill that many of you had to practice in getting yours to work. So I think if you haven't done that yet, I think that is still a useful programming-like skill to have, like troubleshooting and debugging, or just really kind of figuring out what to do when you get an error message. Sometimes they'll be obvious, sometimes they won't, especially when you get into GPT-2, the errors that you might get aren't, like, they don't explain much that you would be able to track back to their origins. But it usually has to do with making sure you follow the steps in order. I did have a typo in my instructions. So like right here, I had originally said reset runtime instead of restart runtime, and you definitely want restart, not reset. So if you went to runtime and you went to factory reset runtime, that would wipe out everything that you've done up until then, and that would be a problem. So it really is restart runtime, which is different, and it clears the memory and lets you proceed with this. point is, double check the directions, ask for help if you get stuck, and hopefully it works, right? But you don't really need to turn in your notebook because it's the content of it isn't, like, you're not adding your own content to this really, other than whatever the text file that you've trained on will generate. And so I'd like for you to share some of the results of your text generation in Discord, but as far as the code itself, I'm not really that interested because I've already seen it because I know it. So that's just part of the things that you're doing for Node 2. So I really want you to do is work through that notebook, share the results in Discord, and then talk about that along with everything else when you turn this in for Node 2, like when you complete that. And this can be, I don't know if anyone's done video or audio, but you're welcome to do that if that's easier for you, or write something, whatever you prefer, really. So I just want to make sure you give me a sense of what you've done for these 2 weeks. Okay. So did that answer anyone's questions? I guess. I hope so. Okay, well, and I can follow up afterwards too, so or emails or whatever. So hopefully that makes sense. But if not, let me know. Oh, I see KGP Gracie. Okay, great. Yeah, KGP Gracie says that helps. So good. I'm glad that helps. Okay, so let's talk about Node 3 then, and it is going to have some similarities to Node 2 in terms of content. I mean, organization. Different content. Node 3, here we go. So I might actually take these headings off because I think they're redundant, but in any case, here's day 1. And what I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk through some things, and I might add some links to this notes section as I talk about it. This isn't a super or formal lecture, but I have several things I wanted to talk about, and then I guess a case I want to make for you. And then afterward, I've got 4 things so far here. These are things to do on your own, and I'm going to say you don't have to do all of them, so it's not like required homework that I'm going to quiz you on or anything like that. But doing 1, ideally 2 of these activities on your own will help you prepare for Wednesday and moving ahead. So this idea that we're exploring here is connectedness or connections, and I'm interested in this because I think it helps us think about this present moment that we find ourselves in with the internet and the web, and all the things we might think of as being social issues around that. And I'm referring to the massive amounts of polarization and disagreement and just alienation that we find online. There are so many ways in which the web that we think of now is very, very far removed from the utopian ideas that people had about the web when it first got started. And I think a way to think about how we got here, I think it is important to think about how we got here, but I also think that I think this present moment might not last forever in terms of the web, and so I think thinking about the history might help us think about the future as well. And so this is kind of a historical module. Like I'm interested in looking at the history of the web, and in doing so, ultimately the code part of this node will be me asking you to create web content as though, or with the style of Web 1.0. And so, yeah, so we're gonna see how that goes. This is a new node for me. Like I'm creating this one right now, so I'm excited to see where we go with this. But to me, it helps fill in some gaps that existed in this class before, and that I know. Well, I know. So I haven't looked, but I think most of you, like maybe 90% of you, were either in my spring DGST 101 or my summer DGST 101. So a very large number of you have come through my classes. So I know a lot about your background in terms of web stuff, most of you. And so I know that most of you have a domain if you came through one of my versions of the class. I know that if you came through the spring class of 101, I had to eliminate the HTML CSS part of DGST 101 for you all, just in the interest of making that semester doable. But I think it's important, and I want to bring it back. Those of you in the summer class, you did get to experience that more typical content for 101 that included the HTML, CSS. So this node, I'm thinking of it as a way to think about our present moment of the web, but also as a way to get in and situate some HTML, CSS instruction and some content. So some of you have already done something like that with HTML, CSS. Many of you probably haven't. And even if you've already done it, you can always do more. So HTML, CSS is a kind of platform that you can do all kinds of things with. And so you can always go further if it's something that you've already done before. And that's kind of what I take for granted, that some of you will have already done it. And for those of you who have had that experience, then I hope you'll create something that builds on what you've done before. Excuse me. For those of you who are coming to it for the first time, that's great too. And I imagine you'll do something commensurate with your skill level. Like you'll do something that maybe isn't quite as ambitious, but that's okay. Like that's totally fine too. Okay, so I was thinking about the web, and so these instructions, by the way, I'm still unfolding these things and kind of creating them for this node. So these are going to be in here. They're going to be in here in sequence. But for today, some things I'd like to invite you to think about and share with you. So when we think of the internet and we think of the web today, it is impossible to think of it without the lens of social media. And I think that is really unfortunate. I think the idea that when we think of going online, we think of Facebook or Twitter or Reddit or whatever, I think is really sad in a lot of ways. Because that's not how it used to be. It used to be a much weirder place, a much messier place, much more chaotic place, and in a lot of ways much more interesting, in part because of that unpredictability and that almost naive utopianism that you find that just isn't there anymore. Like right now at this point we're cynical, we're jaded, we're siloed, and so when we think about creating content, we just think about creating content for these platforms, like making a Facebook meme that will get likes, or making a Twitter thread that will get retweeted. We're thinking in platform terms, and that's really sad to me. So I'm partly nostalgic for this thing that used to exist, that still does, but also partly I want to help you get out of the box, these boxes that have been created for you, these boxes that have been built and have tried to pass themselves off as the web now. So I want to go pretty far back, and thinking about different ways that people have connected through time is a way to get into this. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at a couple of things here that I've got a link to. So this one, I'm going to start with this one actually. So when I think about the history of the web, there's this interesting period that, I don't know if other people use this term, but I've started thinking of it as the golden age of the web. I'm talking like mid-90s to like 2003. That's the era that I think of as the golden age, because that's before the era of blogging. So that's the web before blogging. Blogging took over in around 2005 or so, and then social media took over after that. So we could think of these as ages, and I think the golden age is characterized by chaos, I guess. The idea that anything goes, but that things that go are I don't know. I don't want to say more wholesome, because I don't want to create this revisionist history of the past. But there's so much more, so much less expected of a web page back then, if that makes sense. So Geocities was, in many ways, the leading example of this. Geocities.com, which is no longer exists. In fact, I'm not even sure what happens if you go to the domain at this point. Let's see. Okay, great. It just redirects you to yahoo.com. So Geocities was a web hosting service and email provider and discussion board hoster. They were purchased by Yahoo in 1999, and then Yahoo put them out of business in 2009. Yahoo has done a great job of buying. This is not the only case where Yahoo bought something and then killed it. Google has done that too, but Yahoo, I feel like, sort of didn't do it on purpose, whereas Google kind of did. So Yahoo just sort of failed to do much with Geocities. But I think also the web in general moved beyond a point where Geocities could be useful. So yeah, that's what we're going to do, Sally B. There are a couple ways you can get to it, and where was I? So many tabs. So yeah, that's what I have here actually. So before Geocities was completely shut down, which was in 2009, several different organizations and groups tried to make copies of it and to save it. So the group at archive.org does a ton of work like this, and it's really useful, really valuable. And in a lot of cases, if you know a URL that you're looking for, you can actually just find it in the Wayback Machine. So if you had a Geocities page, or if you know someone who did, and you know their web address, then you can put it here. The tricky thing is that their URL would probably be something like www.geocities.com/area51/ some long number /home.html or something like that. So their discoverability was not a big feature of the way Geocities was designed, so you kind of have to know what you're looking for. But it's there. It's if you can find it. So let's take a look. Actually, Geocities is probably in here. So the Wayback Machine is the Internet Archiver. It's a crawler that goes through and it goes through the whole web, or tries to, and then makes a copy of whatever it finds. So it doesn't have everything. It does its best, but it has, I think at this point, zettabytes of data. 477 billion web pages with who knows how many kilobytes of data that is. And it tries to save a copy of just about everything. So let's go back in time a bit to 1997. I just clicked on this, and then you can see, look at the calendar and find these are days when it has a snapshot of a particular website. So we'll take a look at a snapshot of geocities.com from April 13th, 1997. Let's see what we get here. So this is about when I first got online, by the way. The late 90s, mid-late 90s. I had an America Online account, and that's how I got online. And I don't think I had a homepage with that. I might have, actually. I know that they had that capability of making homepages through AOL, but I don't remember if I did or not. Okay, great. So here we go. So a big aspect of Geocities was community, and so like when you wanted to create a new account, you would join like a neighborhood and make your account part of a group within that neighborhood. It's fine. It's one way to do it. Check out the low resolution animated GIFs. This is a Nissan banner ad. That's great. You can see as you look around here, lots of features of web design that have not really survived and don't exist that much anymore. Things like the bezeled graphic right here, which says visit Geocities Car Center for low-cost car buying, and see how it looks like it sort of pops out like a tablet. I mean, look at the fonts. Man, this is great. I actually really like this design era. And yeah, see how the buttons all seem to like these important links are like buttons that pop out at you. These are design patterns that we've gotten away from, and maybe for a good reason, but yeah, it's interesting. All right, so this is a link to a specific user's homepage, and sometimes these are not archived. Sometimes you'll see a link deeper into Geocities and it doesn't work. So we'll try this one. You can see the URL is www.geocities.com/area51/corridor/3811. So that's somebody's website. I have no idea what this is. I clicked on these things randomly, so I might regret this, but we'll see. Oh, neat. Okay, great. Wow. Nice. Okay, so, oh, neat. Okay, so it looks like this actually it's a link to different software tools, different things like that. Nice. Okay, so, yeah, neat. Looks like there's MIDI. I don't know if it's playing. I can't hear anything, but I wouldn't anyway. All right, so another design thing you're seeing here that's definitely not used at all anymore is the idea of a frame set. So this is like one window here, and then the bottom here is another window. It was a way people organized content on the web. It was a way to accomplish the same kind of thing that we now take for granted on a website, where you see like a navigation of links across the top. So like when you look at like UMW, right? I mean, if you look at these links like that, I mean, so this is a very familiar design pattern, right? We have a row of links. it was kind of tricky to do that when you were coding each page by hand. So back in the olden times like this. And so one way to accomplish that would be to have a frame where you just code that part of your content once and then include that frame, which is like a window into that other page on every other page. So anyway, this is pretty neat. And this kind of stuff is pretty typical. Like you've got the graphics, you've got the, some things are animated for no reason. You've got these sort of pop-out, chunky-looking graphics, and I don't know what this is going to be, but a lot of times people are creating something and then they're sharing something like, hey, download this screensaver, or sign my guest book. That was another big thing that people did with these. Oh yeah, music. Anyway, let me just click to another day, or actually let me find another site to go back in time with. Just showed you UMW, so let's check out not umw.edu, but let's go back to mwc.edu, because it would not have been UMW until, when was that, 2005, I guess, because that's when MWC ceased to exist here as a distinct URL. So let's see how far back we can go, and I can go back to 96, great. And let's see if it loads. Sites like this, they do tend to be a little bit slower. Archive.org's priority is having the content, not necessarily serving it really fast. So sometimes you just have to wait a little bit. So this is November 11th, 1996. Okay, check it out. So it's loading. Sometimes the images don't work. Oh, great, there it goes. Yeah, several of these images are broken, and that's okay. You know, we do our best with these things. One image works. Let's see if we can. There it is. We can kind of see it. I can zoom way in on it, but you can see how the graphics here, you know, the resolution is quite low. But you recognize that spot? You know, I mean, the campus. You know, this is an image that's what, 25 years old, right? Or at least. Probably, but that, you know, that bench is still there. Or actually, no, I think that's actually the bench that got wiped out by a tree last year, a year or two ago. But anyway, it's you know, in front of Trinkle Hall, right? Like that's a pretty familiar spot on campus walk. Let's see what else we can find. Yeah, maybe let's check out. I'm looking at the library. The Simpson. Oh, internet resources. Let's see what the Simpson Library thought we should know about internet and resources. In 1996. I love too, by the way, that every page here has just send questions and comments to Ernest Ackerman on it. Ernest Ackerman was the founder of the computer science department at UMW. Nice, Netiquette. John, December? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, this is kind of fun, but it's not necessarily the point, which is just that, what is this? December.com. I don't know what this is. Right, sorry, let me go back here. Just the point is that information was the goal in this case. It was not about sort of advertising the school, really, although obviously if you're looking for information about the web, about MWC at this point, you can get it from here, but it's clear that they aren't really building this as like an advertising product the way that we do now with our website. Okay, so there's other ways you can explore copies of Geocities content. I did a little bit of digging earlier today. So this website, Ooocities or oocities.org, attempts to be an archive of Geocities. It has a copy of a lot of content, but you still have to kind of click randomly until you find a site that actually works, and they're just organized by number essentially. So it's hard to say, hard to tell what you're going to get when you click on it. But I found this one. This is Red's sports page, and you can see, hey, I'm Red. He's into BMX biking. He gives us an opportunity to sign the guest book, which is nice. We see the marquee text scrolling left to right there. We see links to cool sites and my pages. A disco ball animated GIF. I don't know what he meant by this type of address of your own. It's a broken link, so I don't know what Red meant by that. But this idea of it, what I wanted you to notice about these things is all the ways that this site is built around the idea of connecting. So we have email me here, sign my guest book. These are call outs to the reader to participate in this, like to be part of this. To say like, hey, I have a link you might want to see, and every time you add a link to a page, and whenever you invite other links, you're building connections, you're building nodes and edges in a network of ideas that are connected around your interests. And this is not how we think of connections now. Like right now, you notice he's got stuff about snowboards and bikes and sports cars. These are things he thinks are cool and that he wants other people to think are cool too, or he's interested in seeing more things that are like this that are cool. This is not how we think about our Facebook profile, our LinkedIn profile, our Twitter page, right? We think of connections as something we just kind of do because we have to. Facebook is built on that idea that we connect with our family and our people we've met. We don't connect just with people who share our interests. So it's interesting how we've ended up the way we are now. Let me take a look at a few more. So this one is United Wrestling Confederation. I don't know what kind of wrestling that is, but this is made by Junkie Monkey, and I guess, or the web design is, I can't really tell. I haven't really clicked on links here. Clicking on a link sometimes takes like minutes to load, so I'm gonna try not to. This might be like professional type wrestling because we've got people named Everlasting Beasley, Dr. X, Black Angel, Mike Jones, Adam the Cat, Gus Gully, Iron Bobby Bash. That's cool. Okay, so the thing that I wanted to show you though in this one is this little bit down here on the left. This is what's called a web ring. And so the idea is when you found people to connect with that had Geocities pages similar to yours, you would say, hey, let's be part of a web ring together. And a web ring is where like you can, from this United Wrestling Confederation site, you might be like, oh, I like this site. Let me see another site like it. And then you could click to the next site in the web ring. Now these links don't work anymore. A web ring was like this little widget that you see here was actually hosted on a different server. And so it would embed here, and then you could, it has like the master list of all the sites in a web ring, and so you could click through them. But this, I love this idea of like being part of a sequence, like being part of this list, and then you find other people on your list, and then you kind of let users navigate from your content to someone else's content. And I mean, that's really what, whenever you hear the term web surfing, I think that's the kind of thing that we're really talking about. This is an application page to be part of the Sci-Fi Connections web ring. So if you had a sci-fi themed page, you could try to get your page added to this web ring. And then if your application was successful, then other people would see or might come across your web page by clicking through someone else's web ring. And so it's a way of discovering content that has so much more surprise and serendipity involved in it, as opposed to Google, which we think of as just giving us the answer. Even if it's not really the answer, we think of like the first page of results and that's it, and then we're done. We think of it as a series of answered questions. But now, we're back in the olden times, it was more about like, what am I interested in? Let me explore what's out there. Not sort of like, let me answer this question. And I think in a lot of ways we were better off back then. I mean, I realize I'm falling prey to nostalgia, but I still think there's something interesting here. This is, a lot of these pages are XFiles related. XFiles is a TV show. This was someone's, I couldn't quite figure this one out, but it's somebody who's interested in Wraith, which I think is the role-playing game, and then like what they're calling like Dark Worlds. I don't really get what's going on there, but I don't know. This is another XFiles something. I don't know. Again, you get a lot with XFiles. That seems to be a theme. But I mean, XFiles was the biggest show, but also like XFiles was kind of like a high concept, high prestige TV show that was about like nerdy stuff, I guess, or the kind of thing that people with websites would have been interested in. So it's very much, it spoke well to that. Anyway, what I'm trying to explain here is this idea of being connected as being organized around content and association through content, and that's how you discover new things on the web. I mean, the thing with Google, right, is if you don't know to search for something, you're not going to search for it, you're not going to find it. But with something like a web ring, you can just sort of click, 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 and then be surprised. And that element, the capacity to be surprised as a result of ways in which things are connected that aren't obvious, I think is what's really missing from the web today. So again, I realize I'm being nostalgic, but I can do that if I want. So down here in the Explore Further, I've got links to Ooocities or Ooocities.org. I invite you to explore that and see if you can find a good site. If you do find a good one, share the link to it in Discord, bearing in mind that these do move very, very slowly. So let me show you actually how to do that before I click into the other things. So if you go to, that's something else, sorry. I was trying to figure out who this guy is. Ooocities.org or Ooocities, I guess. You can click into it through a neighborhood. So you can look for okay, here's Pittsburgh. And once this loads, see what I mean? It's very slow. Once it loads, you'll see a list of numbers. You probably couldn't hear that because that was pretty distant, but my son is screaming again. He gets, I don't know, he gets wound up and he starts screaming. He's not in pain or upset. He's just, I don't know, having some kind of ninja-related activity, I think. He likes to run around and swing swords. So these are numbers. Everything okay? All right.
He just rolled a ball into the bee.
Okay. Okay, you can tell me later. I'm streaming. It's okay. So these are different individuals' web pages. So I have not seen this whole directory before, so I'm just clicking on 1429 randomly, and we'll see what comes up eventually. Okay, so yeah, here we go. So these are Caroline's little gems. Please sign my guest book. So people want to know that you're seeing their website and then responding to it. This seems rabbit themed, right? So rabbitmom7 at AOL. Guest book, sign my guest book. Let's see if we can actually view guest books. This is definitely something that we don't do anymore. I don't recommend putting a guest book on your website. Yeah, see, these are not working. I also don't recommend putting your email address on your website. Certainly not your phone number. But this is what people used to do. It was a more innocent time. Okay, so just explore it, see if you find one that you like, and then share it if you do. A couple other things you can try, and I'll just explain these things here. When we think about different ways people could have been connected, and thinking back to, again, this sort of time period of the late 90s, early 2000s, the web wasn't the only way. And the web sort of became social media, apps and so on. But there are other ways that the internet makes possible. Email, of course, chat, like IRC, ICQ, AIM. These are different chat products that people probably still use to connect to each other. Discord is very much the descendant of that kind of thing, like our IRC kind of chat. So it is something that a modality that we still use, and a lot of the same things that we take for granted as far as those spaces have been true for 30, 40 years in some cases. Like quick short messages, replying with the @ symbol, and so on. Like these are things that used to happen in dedicated platforms built around chat. So I just sort of, this doesn't exactly fit, but I felt like showing it to you anyway. A way that people used to connect with each other online, and probably still do, in fact I'm going to try to connect right now, is using something called a MUD. And this is a MUD. This is hold on, let me turn off some of my windows here. So this is one of the things that I'm inviting you to try. This is a tool that I have called Mudlet, but I have a link on a page to other ways you can connect to this particular MUD server. A MUD server is like a chat room. It is a chat room, but it's a chat room where you play as a character, and you can do different things depending on the rules of that server. So you can maybe you can have a name, you can have a description, so when people look at you, they see that description. It's all text-based. I used to, when I was in grad school, I used to help run a server like this, and we called it text-based virtual reality. And I think that's a pretty compelling metaphor, but it is a metaphor. So right now I'm connecting to Lambda Moo, which is one of the most famous ones. There's lots of journalism and a famous essay written about Lambda Moo. And you don't have to do this with this particular software, so I'm not explaining this software or what I'm doing. If you want to do this, there's probably a different way to do it on your computer, which that webpage that I linked you to might have instructions about. But literally, you can also do it just from a command line on Mac or Windows. So I'm typing commands here, and as you can see, this text scrolling by, it's telling me about the connection right now, telling me where I am. So currently, I've connected. I am in a place called the coat closet. The closet is a dark, cramped space. It appears to be very crowded in here. You keep bumping into what feels like coats, boots, and other people apparently sleeping. One useful thing that you've discovered in your bumbling about is a metal doorknob set at waist level into what might be a door. Next to it is a spring lever labeled quiet. There is new news. Type news to read all the news, and blah, blah. I don't want to. Okay. So you can do things like check your inventory by typing I. I don't have anything right now, so I'm empty-handed. You can talk. So let's see if anyone's here. I can say hello, and you can see it prints back like dialogue text, like you say hello. I forgot I didn't need to add quote marks for there. So other people in the world would see Zach says hello. Let me see if I can just go. Let me just get out of this closet. Okay, so now I'm in the living room. It says you open the closet door and leave the darkness for the living room, closing the door behind you so as not to wake the sleeping people inside. Now I'm in the living room. It is very bright, open, and airy in here, and there's a long description. At the bottom of the description, you can see things that are here, and there's a welcome poster, a fireplace, the living room couch, statue, cockatoo, helpful person finder, a lag meter, the birthday machine, and a map of Lambda House. That's the content, and then there are some other people here. So there's Butter, Distant Origin, and Rusty are here. So these are other people. They might be bots, but they are probably other people. So let me try saying hello and seeing if any of them respond. I mean, they literally could be people, and they might say something totally inappropriate. I don't know. That's kind of the fun of this kind of thing. But since it says they're out on their feet, it probably means that's the away message. So that probably means that they aren't actually paying attention to it. So, okay, but we can see. Let me examine. Take a look at Butter. So Butter is has a Latin description and I think Butter is a bot. So let's see about Rusty. So Rusty is a person, as the gender male. Okay, interesting. So these are the kind of things you can do to build out a character. And over time, if you have an account that you invest in, you could have a consistent identity, and you could be part of a community through that identity. That's how it used to work. As I used to, I think these are still, the fact that these exist is still kind of a novelty. I don't know if people are using these very actively anymore. I certainly don't use them very actively. I did at one point briefly set up a Moo server, like a server like this for UMW. It is not running anymore, I don't think. So I don't know what it would take to get that running again. But this is one of the options for you to explore further if you'd like to explore Lambda Moo. So let me show you. Maybe I can just show you very quickly how you might do that on a Mac at least. This would look very similar on a Mac. So let me pop up my shell window here and show you what this would look like. So this is get to the top. Yeah, there you go. You can hopefully kind of see that. So this window, this is what it would look like on a Mac if you open a Mac terminal. Actually, I believe the same commands will work pretty much the same on a Windows command line, but I don't have that up right now. Let's see. Oops, nope. I don't have numlock on. Hold on. So I believe I have telnet. Okay, I do. So telnet is a internet protocol that you can use still. Come on. Oh no. Okay. Let's see. What if I do? Nope. Try that. Oh, really? Okay. I guess that doesn't work that way. Wait, what? I don't know. I don't really know what protocol it wants me to use. I could try HTTP, but that shouldn't work. Yeah. Okay, maybe that doesn't work. The point is, it's one of several things you can try, and if you want, you can try it. There might actually be a Discord bot that'll let us do this inside of Discord. I'm going to investigate that further. Okay, so the point is to explore these things and see what you can find. There's also, if you look at it here in the explore further, so I'm interested in this idea kind of at this moment where it seems like social media is sort of at a crisis point. I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe this is just, going to be another period, but it feels like there's a bit more of an inflection here where people are really shifting their opinions and their practices. So there's this docudrama, they call it, this documentary film on Netflix that just came out a little while ago called The Social Dilemma, that addresses kind of where we are right now in terms of social media. Specifically, the main, I guess, narrative of the piece is from various people from tech companies like Pinterest and Facebook and Google talking about how they regret what they have created. And so the overall message is turn things off and disconnect. Like that's the kind of call to action at the end of that film. I have some, well, I don't know. I don't want to tell you how I feel about the movie. I'm interested to see what you all think. So if you would like to do that, that would be okay. These are all options, but do at least one of these things, ideally 2 or 3, or maybe even all of these things. Some of these things like Explorer, Ooocities, and Wayback Machine, you can kind of do while you're working on something else if you want. But the ultimate idea is to look at and try to find examples of how people have connected in the past using the web, or imagine ways we might think about how people connect in the future. All right, so that was all kind of, so yeah, that was all. I feel like that was a bit rambly, but I hope it made sense, and I hope you can see where we're going with this, which is we're going to explore connections. So actually, let me go to the module table of contents so I can show you that roadmap, and then I'll wrap things up here. So today was the introduction to the idea of connections. On Wednesday, we will focus on a history of hypertext, and that's the fundamental concept that makes the web what it is. So we'll talk about that, and I'll show you how to do it. Then we'll talk about social networks before social media on Friday, and then on Monday we'll look at the rise of the Internet of Things, which might feel like a tangent, but I want to argue is another way of seeing connections playing out because of the web. Then we'll look at how to map our connections and then make our new connections. So ultimately, the thing that you're going to complete for this will be a hand-coded web page. And so part of what we'll be doing for each of these days of class is there will be some content, but there will also be some instruction in how to build a web page. So yeah, let me see. I have started adding these things in here. So yeah, so on Wednesday, I will cover or give you a resource that helps you cover some basics of HTML, which is the language that creates all these things and makes them possible. And then on Friday, I'll talk a little bit about how to write your own HTML page and also how to set up a subdomain, which is what I'm going to recommend you do for creating your project here. And then, yeah, kind of build that alongside various topics, various content topics that we address. So it's still a little bit forthcoming, and yeah, share it in your Discord channel, Sally B. Like, yes, either there or just in general. If you're not sure where something goes, general is always good. And I'm just typing that same thing just in case you're not watching anymore. Okay, great. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks for watching, everyone. Again, pick one or more of those 4 suggestions to do on your own, and then be ready to talk about them. Remember, if you are in a Wednesday cohort, then I will expect to see you on Wednesday. Everyone else should plan on being online during your scheduled time if possible, or plan on checking the instructions for what to do asynchronously later. Okay, well, thanks for watching this, and I will wrap it up here. If you have any questions, I will continue to be online for a little bit, so feel free to post them there, and I will be streaming again in about 20 minutes for section 2. Okay, see you later.